fellow travelers, welcome on in. This is the RPG Cave, level 148. I'm one of your hosts, the level 199 Human Dark Lord, Ryan Turford, and I am joined for the first time in a fortnight by the level 199 Elf Bell Alchemist, Dr. Garret Bled. How's it going, Garret?
Doing good, man. It's been more than a fortnight, for sure.
It's been a week.
It's been 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. I guess it has been 2 weeks.
Yes.
You're right.
You were hanging out with your other friend last week, which is super cool. I came in and saw part of the show. Super dope.
Yeah. And then you were with Seth, right?
I was with Seth. Did we have a show in between?
I thought we did. That's why I thought it was only a week. You confused me, man.
Oh, no. It's been 1 week apart, I guess.
It's been
2 weeks ago. I saw you.
There we go. There you
go.
We got this.
We got this.
It's early in the morning, Garret. Okay,
you
were doing math when it's I'm amazed that neither of us are actually even awake at this point.
It's the crack of dawn over here. So
yeah,
doing good, man. How about you?
Yeah. Good. Now, Garret, I know that this might be part of your three things, but I have to ask, and maybe this segues us to your three things.
Sure.
How was your birthday, man?
Oh, it's not one of my three things, but thank you. It was good. It was very chill. So my wife actually made a tiramisu for me, a homemade cake, which was very, very nice. And just chilled at home. It was on a Thursday, so it was like, okay, gotta work type of deal. But later, Friday we went to out to dinner across the bay, and it was very nice just to celebrate that. So very chill 30th birthday for sure.
Okay.
It didn't do much else, and then maybe hang out with friends.
I was gonna say that kind of sounds like what my 30th birthday was like, anyways, too. Because like my 30th birthday, I told the story on the PlayStation Drive this week because we were asked about like memorable milestone birthdays, and I spent it, in my college dorm. I went to school all day, doing like filming stuff because when I was going to broadcast school. And my friends threw a surprise birthday party for me, and I didn't go because I was hanging out with my girlfriend playing World of Warcraft in my dorm room. So
you didn't go to your own birthday celebration.
Surprise birthday party.
Oh, you didn't know.
I didn't. Actually, eventually they told me, trying to get me out of my room, and I was like, oh, well, I already promised my girlfriend I would play World of Warcraft all night, so that's the priority. So.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I told the story on the PlayStation Drive because it's a go listen to that. It's a big long story. It's going to take me like 5 minutes to retell it again.
Okay, no, I'm curious. Did you regret not going?
No, because I honestly because people had asked me people in my class knew it was my birthday. So they asked me, hey, what was I doing that night? And I was just flat out, I've got plans to hang out with my girlfriend, and we're going to play World of Warcraft, and it's going to be awesome. And they were like, apparently took that as, oh no, he desperately needs to get out and, come to a surprise birthday party.
Oh.
Where I was like very upfront and being like, I'm actually busy. So yeah, so I didn't regret it because I actually had, I had fun just having a chill, like indoors kind of night,
It's interesting to hear how other people, when you talk about, oh, I'm going to game with someone, or are you going to game for the night? They're like, oh, you're lonely or something like that.
I had a bit of a reputation at the college, Garret, where I just whenever people would be like, oh, let's go to the bar or something, I'd be like, nah, I kind of just am tired. I just want to go back to my room. So I had the reputation already of just like never leaving my room to begin with when people would ask. So I think that played into it a little bit.
Got it. Well, let me tell you, I was kind of like that too. I was half like going out, half like going back to my room. I remember my roommates just like, oh, you want to hang out for, Saturday or Sunday? I'm just like, you go hang out with your friends. I'm good. But the bars, they can be expensive.
That's what I mean. Yeah. It's not only that too, but like when you're in your 30s, Garret, and I think you're going to start to feel this too, but it's like going to the bars every Friday night or every weekend it's not something that you always want to do every week. Like at least like as I got older, the less I wanted to do that, to the point where I just, stopped going,
Well, I mean, we hang out with friends every now and then, not every like once a week. Let's go to a bar.
Yeah.
Type of deal. But yeah.
Well, yeah, hanging with friends is a very different thing than like going to a bar kind of thing, you know. But I'm going to address a couple comments in the chat from one Sean Capri. First of all, Sean points out when I said it was very early in the morning, where Sean says, "Right, it's 11 a.m. in all caps." To which I reply to Sean, "I worked till 3 in the morning last night, so I didn't even get home until 4. So I really did not get a lot of sleep last night."
We're running on like 6 or 7 hours of sleep, which, you know, depending on the person, that's good enough.
Yeah, and Sean also asked, "Why is Garrett trying to seduce us?"
I am trying to seduce you, Sean. It's early in the morning. I don't want to wake up someone else here in this apartment. So
exactly.
there you go.
I know that the NPCs have correctly called out ASMR Garrett being the usual Garrett now that we record the show a little bit earlier. Yeah, exactly. It's the best part of waking up is
Sean, I'm here to seduce you for the weekend.
Yeah, it's working, apparently. That's what Sean says. You know.
Boom. I love it.
Boom.
Anyways, I got 3 things.
Right. All right. Tell us about it, man.
I got to look up on my phone because I totally forgot, even though I put it down like 5 minutes ago, about getting delayed. I think that's the biggest thing happening in the RPG news. Sucks for me because that was my pick for Fantasy Critic.
You didn't get a counter pick, though, right?
No, I didn't get a counter pick, so I can drop it now since they announced it's delayed. There's I also have Suikoden remastered on my draft pick, but I can't drop it because they haven't announced a delay on it. Oh. So we have a certain amount of picks to drop, right, in our titles, and I can't drop it right now because they're not saying, "Oh, gonna be delayed till 2025," even though we know by now that's what's gonna happen. So
I mean, one would assume anyways, but Avowed, you're right, like that was news I was not expecting, because I thought between that and Indiana Jones, that was the more likely title to come out this year, and Indiana Jones getting delayed to next year. So it's actually kind of surprising to me that it got delayed, but it's cool that we know the release date now. Like, it's out in like mid-February. Which is cool.
mid-February, which is I think a good time, but also at the same time, Ryan, it's a new IP, so it may have a better chance to get more people in and playing a new IP in February with brand new consoles or brand new subscriptions, rather than being in November or something like that. Yeah. Whereas Indiana Jones, I guess it sounds like that'll be a December game. So
right. Cool. Yeah, because if the plan was for it to come out in let's say November or October, it's contending with Call of Duty, which is owned by Xbox, or other like any myriad of other games that are coming out this fall. So while February has also been busy, it's probably less busy than it would have been this fall for that game. So I think you're probably right. So
cool. About getting delayed sucks for me. I have to choose a different game now on my Fantasy Critic draft. Okay,
you can do it though. There are other games, Garrett.
There is, but it's a tight race in the PSVG league. Let me tell you, the top 3 are kind of just switching around, and then I'm like 4th or 5th or whatever. We'll see how it goes. Number 2, I've been and Ryan, I think you've noticed this, slowing down my gaming pace. It's just, I think it's the dog days of summer, man. Yeah. I think it's just like, I got other stuff to do. I want to watch a show. I got a lot of work to do. I don't know. I don't feel compelled to go through gaming as much. Do you ever get into that kind of pace?
I'm glad you asked that, Garrett, because we actually talked about this on PlayStation Drive 2 weeks ago, but like, I have not played a ton of games lately because I just haven't really, it's not that I haven't been in the mood for it, but like, I've had a big kind of schedule change in my life, and that has kind of changed how I do things in the day, where now I'm just like, where most of my free time is the middle of the day, like early on in the day, like I usually not always playing games during that time. So it's really like cut into the time that I play video games too. And sometimes as well, Garrett, like sometimes, sometimes you just want to do other stuff, and that's okay. Like you like a big game will come around, and then you will really go all in on it. Just like, when the the Visions of Mana demo came out, which we'll talk about later. Like I was like so excited to play it, and I immediately installed it, and then I hopped in as soon as I was home from work, and I played the heck out of it and really enjoyed it. And that was the first time in a little while that there was a game that I got excited about. And part of that is also too like there just aren't a lot of releases currently that are coming out that are new over the summer that I'm like excited about. Of course, there's more backlog stuff to go play as always, but like. Sometimes you can just play that at a slower pace during this time of year where you're wanting to do other things.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a mixture of that. I think it's also I like the games I'm playing. It's just I'm not like bidding at like chomping at the end to finish the game or going through it excited like let's compare to a Persona 3 Reloaded, But Game Pass has so many different new games, especially I'm surprised the third party announcement. Especially I wanna play Wakes Till the Deep or
Still Wakes the Deep?
Yeah, that's the one. I keep messing up on it. I wanna play that. I'm really into first person sims. So that would be cool. And then also the new Capcom game. Is it Capcom or Bandai?
It's Capcom. It's Path of the Goddess.
Path of the Goddess, yes. I want to try that out because it's actually a defense tower.
It's a tower defense game, yeah.
Yeah, tower defense.
I played the demo for it. It was fine. I'm not super into tower defense, but it was like one of the more fun tower defense games I've played.
Yeah, so I definitely want to check that out. And I also want to finish Humanity, So I'm kind of like, I'm stretched thin, but it's just mini games I want to try, not like go through and finish.
Right. Yeah, you're almost like in a mood where you don't want to commit to anything. You just want to play some stuff here and there, but like you're not really like in the mood for that big game right now.
But I think after Trials of Mana, once I'm done with that, Hogwarts Legacy, I'm pretty much almost done with the main story of Hogwarts Legacy. It's Final Fantasy VII Classic time. It's time. I'm procrastinating like crazy, Ryan. I've been slacking this year with the backlog adventures. I feel it. It's mid-year. It's past mid-year. I've only done one game. I'm embarrassed.
That's
right
true.
Now.
I'm true.
So embarrassed. So I got to get through some of these classic games.
Otherwise, they'll stay on the backlog forever, and you won't be assigned any new games, and we can't have that.
Can't have that.
Of course, speaking of Game Pass, Sean Capri points out, have you ever heard of a game called Hollow Knight?
Oh boy, I tried like 30 minutes of that, and I couldn't. I can't. I'm not good with 2D. I'm not good with platformer. I'm not good with Metroidvania. And so I'm like, okay.
See, I'm good with all those things, but the aesthetic of Hollow Knight just didn't do it for me. So I also played for like an hour and a half, and I was like, nah, I can't do it.
Is there a map in that game?
There is a map in that game.
See, I didn't even find it. Like when I was just pressing buttons, I just kind of gave up. I'm like, no, I'm good right now.
Yeah. But yeah, I know it's been Sean's obsession, so I had to point that out a little bit because I'm glad that he's enjoying it, despite the fact that neither of us
on Game Pass, right? I
guess
so.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
It's on my Steam Deck. So.
Nice.
Anyways, number 3, we got our Costco membership back. We kind of let it expire. Do you know Costco?
I do know Costco. We have Costco here in Canada.
Okay, it's pretty wide, pretty popular, I guess.
In fact, my old apartment in London that I lived in before I moved here, we had a Costco literally across the street from me.
Cool. I used to be at when we were living in the city, we were like walkable distance to a Costco, which was very convenient. We decided to let our membership end like a couple months ago. And then we just realized, oh, we kind of need this. Oh, we kind of need that. And so we kind of gave in to the gas prices and the cheaper. Well, it may not be cheaper, but we do like some of the stuff that we get from Costco. So,
okay,
there you go.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like I never really shopped at Costco because I live by myself. I always lived by myself, so I don't really have. So, like, as you know, Garrett, when you go to Costco, almost everything is in like much larger packages because it's in bulk. So it's like I don't have enough room in my place for a lot of the stuff there, or like I wouldn't be able to eat it all anyways before it expires because I'm only one person. Like
That's
how
true.
I always felt going to Costco.
It's really for like a family of like 5.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
But even I think it's doable if you have like a roommate or if there's 2 of you, right? Like if you
Definitely.
you and your you and your partner, like there's enough like stuff you can get where you can eat through a lot of that stuff.
Well, we get the sales, and the freezer stuff, and it's just the sales really gets us. It's like, oh, it's originally this much, now it's saving $4 or $5 here and there. You can get a full carton tray of croissants
Oh my god.
for $5. It's insane.
See, that's an insane price, but then like I would never be able to eat that many croissants. Like almost all of them would go bad.
Well, we freeze them, so.
Oh, well, my freezer's not that big.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. And then of course the concession stands. The hot dog.
Yeah.
The pizza, pretty good stuff. So
Yeah.
shout out to
Everyone says
Costco.
Costco pizza is the best pizza around.
It's okay. It's a little on the greasy end. It's fine.
I feel like
fine
it's
pizza.
probably as good as the pizza vending machine that is at the train station that I go to every single day.
Okay,
Yes.
hold on, stop. Pizza in a vending machine.
Yeah, there's a pizza vending machine that will actually cook pizza in front of you and then serve it to you. You go, it's got a touch screen, you pick out which type of pizza you want, and then it makes it for you right in front of you, and it takes like 3 minutes.
I wouldn't trust it. I wouldn't trust that at all.
I
I
mean,
would
just
not
like
eat that pizza, and no, I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
good. That sounds like the future, though.
It is. It seems that way because like that's so weird. It's such a weird concept to think about, but then it's like, when I think about like Japan, for example, where everything's in vending machines, I'm like, that's not actually that crazy now. Now that I think,
Is it like robotic arms, like a little?
oh yeah,
robot
it's totally
hand
robotic. There's
kinda
no humans in it.
And like, does it pick out the pepperoni like this, like a little index fingers? You just.
Oh,
put
you
it
don't
on?
get to see the pizza actually be assembled.
Oh, that sucks. I would
Yeah.
like to see the pizza being assembled. That would be
Yeah.
actually, and it'd be a little, just like a little pipeline right in front of you. He just like does the toppings and it goes through the convection oven. You can see your pizza heating up. Here we go. Business idea, Ryan. Let's do it.
Okay. I like that. I like that
All right.
idea.
Pizza vending machine 2.0.
Yep. Gotta
created by-
watch the pizza being made. Yeah. In fact, that's why I was surprised. I was like, oh yeah, you guess you might not have those there because like we have them all around Toronto, like these pizza vending machines.
Let me tell you that vending machine would be broken into and all the ingredients would be stolen if it was public around San Francisco. So, no, not
I don't know.
surprised.
I mean, I live in a neighborhood where it's kind of like what you described. So, but it hasn't been broken into yet. So,
Surprising.
it's surprising. But anyways, Garrett, we're 18 minutes in the show, and I haven't even done the housekeeping yet. We should.
Oh, that's fine.
We should probably do that. So let's clear the dungeon so we can get to the raid boss as quickly as possible. So, folks at home, if you want to support the show, there's a number of amazing ways you can do that. Number one, if you're watching the live stream right now over at youtube.com/carpoolgaming, or if you're watching the video on demand later, don't forget to hit that like button, kick that subscribe button, and let us know in the comments below what you think about Trials of Mana, or maybe if you're excited about that Visions of Mana game, let us know. Or hey, if you want to just roll a D20 and then tell us what you got in the D20, let us know that too as well. We would love to hear from you. Also, if you're listening on audio feeds, don't forget to, of course, rate us if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or just hitting that subscribe button really helps the show go a long way. Also, if you want one big podcast feed with the entire Carpool Gaming cinematic universe on it, head on over to our Patreon, patreon.com/carpoolgaming, just like Daryl did, who joined at the ad-free all-in-one tier, as well as Ian Vargas, who also joined at the ad-free all-in-one tier. So shout out to Daryl and Ivan for heading on over to Patreon, getting those ad-free podcasts. Shout out to y'all. And of course, shout out to all of our patrons, by the way, who help keep the lights on here at Carpool Gaming. And last but not least, of course, we have our website, carpoolgaming.com, where, of course, we have our campfire merch for our newest website. A newest show called Campfire, as well as an RPG Cave t-shirt if you want an RPG Cave t-shirt, and a whole lot more. All right, Garrett, without further ado, it is now time to read from the sacred text. Sean points out, and this was not on my notes, so old Mr. Frump is also a gold member. So shout out to old Mr. Frump as well. Late entry to the Patreon, which is probably why I missed out on this. So apologies, old Mr. Frump. But shout out to old Mr. Frump.
Shout out.
All right, Garrett. It's now time to talk about Trials of Mana. I know you've been playing it. I know you're not finished yet, but we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna have a big discussion about it because it feels like the right time to do this discussion. We've got a new Mana game right around the corner at the end of August, and we're going to talk about Trials of Mana, the last game in the series to release, which of course released back on June 11th, 2019. Now, Garrett, I don't know if you knew this as well. It is also a remake of a very old game.
Yes, it is.
Which actually originally released as Seiken Densetsu 3 on the Super Nintendo on September 30th, 1995. So this is actually a remake of a Super Nintendo role-playing game. But
okay. Was this a Japan-only game?
It was a Japan-only game. I was about to mention that because, of course, the name Trials of Mana didn't actually get applied to it until they actually released the collection of Mana on Switch, which came out, I think, in 2018 in North America, which had Trials of Mana in it, which was the very first official localization for that game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because I had played fan translations back in the day of Trials of Mana, because that's how I got into it originally. I originally played it on the Super Famicom. In fact, that was actually the first ever game with like a fan translation I had ever played. Back when like emulators were like starting to become a thing.
Cool.
Because that was one where I was like, I love Secret of Mana, and I wanted to. And there was this whole other Mana game that came out, and I didn't get to play, so of course I had to jam it out and play it. So.
Cool. I never got used to figuring out how to translate English patches. I was trying to do the Dragon Quest XI on 3DS. It was a little too much in the dark web for me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very different for each, console, because the nice thing about Super Nintendo games was that most times you would just find the ROM with the game with the translation patch already applied. So you really just had to run it as is, and it was very easy. But you're right though, especially like a lot of these newer consoles, it's a little more complicated.
Yeah, you have to here's an add-on fan pack thing. Okay, you got to go to GitHub and download this executable. I'm just like, I don't know about this, but cool. It's super cool. To hear.
Exactly. Yeah, especially So for Super Famicom games or Genesis games and stuff, like if any of those that you've ever wanted to go play and they're translated, it's very easy to go look them up and grab them. But so Trials of Mana, let's talk about it. So as I mentioned, we'll talk about my journey into it real quick before we talk about yours. Of course, like I mentioned, my first experience with this game was on the Super Famicom through emulation with a translation patch, and I really, really enjoyed the game at the time. I played it in the early 2000s, so definitely, it's one of those games that really has that very old school design feel to it. And it's definitely a game nowadays that if I go back to, it's definitely harder to play that game nowadays versus playing it back then. Not because of the visuals, because the visuals are gorgeous for the Super Famicom version. Like that, honestly, is one of the best looking Super Nintendo games. But the gameplay design is very dated. So I think that is the biggest thing, where it's very hard to play that game without a guide, without knowing what to do. Cause it's, we've talked about it before with old RPGs, Garrett, where it's like, you got to talk to every person in town, pay attention to what they say to kind of discern where you go next. And it's like, it could be annoying a little bit.
Yeah. It looks like, well, of course, Super Famicom version, it's going to be the 2D pixelated art type of style, it looks super dope. I'm curious, how did you feel about, you've played a lot of Mana games, classic Mana games. How did the action feel in this game?
I think the action feels really good. Like, it feels very comparable to Secret of Mana, because they feel very different, but it had a few improvements on the Secret of Mana formula, which I appreciated. So I think the combat itself actually holds up really well. It's just, it's more just the pathfinding and the story that really just don't hold up as much from the original version, I think.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, the Super Famicom version, that's how I got into it. And then when they announced this remake, Garrett, I was very skeptical about it because, one, because they actually did a full remake. I don't know if you remember this, a full remake of Secret of Mana on the PlayStation 4 and PC. And that remake was trash. It was real bad. It did not feel good to play. There were weird, localization problems with it. The art style just did not look great. So, when they announced that they were doing a full 3D remake of Trials of Mana, I was very skeptical that they were going to be able to pull this off after what happened with the Secret of Mana remake.
Okay.
But then before it came out, they released a demo for it. And I played the demo. I was like, okay, well, I love the original game, so let's try this out and see how this works. And I actually really enjoyed the demo a lot, to the point where it completely turned me around on my expectations for this game, where I actually became excited to play Trials of Mana when it finally came out. And then it finally came out, and as we'll talk about, this is actually a game I enjoyed quite a bit. You've heard me talk about it on the show before, but I was day one on this game, and I really, really enjoyed it. But we'll talk about that more as we kind of go.
Cool. Yeah, I remember that demo too. I did play that on Switch, and I enjoyed it as well at the time. But of course, I got the game and I haven't played till now with the backlog. So maybe you want to get into Trials of the remake now.
Yeah, I think the old game. I think it's so fun to play because I think the collection of Mana on Switch is actually a really good collection, and I think it's a really good way of playing that game. And I do think it's worth trying out. But I definitely think it's a lot easier to get into this one versus the original one. Going back and playing any of those older Mana games, they're a little more obtuse, and I think they're a little bit harder for people.
You definitely need a guide for one of those.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh yeah, especially if you go back and play Seconds, that says you the original Mana game that's included there, which is the Game Boy one. That one in particular, you really need a guide for that as an example. But
cool.
Yeah, so we'll kind of talk about it proper now that we've kind of set the stage. Where of course you're playing it for the first time now. We've established this as well. So Garrett, first of all, what's interesting about this game that's different from other Mana games, and they haven't done this since, and I thought they might be doing that with Visions of Mana, but after we played the demo, it became very clear to me that I don't think that they're doing that with this version. But Trials of Mana does something interesting, where when you first start the game, it asks you to choose your 3 protagonists that you want for the story from 6 different characters, which is really interesting. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Garrett, I want to know from you, because this is an important distinction for people who have played this game before. Which characters did you choose?
Yes, I got the characters pulled up. Hold on 1 second here. I grabbed Durin.
Okay.
Which is the
warrior guy.
Yeah. Angela. The princess of the Magic Kingdom. And then Risu.
Riz?
Yeah, it looks like it's pronounced Risu, according to Wikipedia. I don't know. But yeah, it's the princess of the Wind Kingdom. Yeah.
Okay.
Those are the 3 I chose.
Okay. Because believe it or not, Garrett, when I first played this game, that was exactly the party I chose too.
Oh, really? Oh, wait. The remake or the original game?
Both.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because I Duran kind of reminds me of the kind of the prototypical Mana character, and I was kind of more of a defensive, tanky kind of character in the party, and he kind of fits that role well. Angela is one of the only spellcasters in the game, so I really wanted to make sure to have her, and then I just really like Reese's character design, so that's why I wanted to have her in my party. And in fact, she was kind of the person I selected as the main protagonist, and Duran and Angela were kind of along for the ride.
That is exactly the same journey as me right now.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, as I play this and pick those characters, I can tell the story can be very different.
Yes.
If you choose other protagonists, because you do see the rest of the cast, but only in a slightly just like slightly involved.
Yeah.
Nothing major.
Yeah,
with
they're not
them.
really involved in the main story at all.
Mhm.
Like you see them along the way, and you interact with them a little bit where it makes sense for the story. But you're right, like it's very, very, very different. Whereas, because essentially the way this game works, Garrett, is that there are actually 3 different routes you can go on with the story. And you will fight. Not only will the story be different, you will fight completely different bosses and go to completely different places.
Interesting.
Depending on how your party makes up. And essentially what the way to think about it is there's 6 characters in total, Garrett. And each of the characters are divided into pairs. So Duran and Angela are a pair. As you've probably noticed, if you played the prologue for Angela or the prologue for Duran, their intro stories line up with each other because they're both they both center like their key thing is the Crimson Wizard.
Yes,
is essentially the part of it. Kevin and Charlotte are linked up.
Okay,
they're kind of paired together. Kevin the werewolf character, and then Charlotte the little sprite character.
Oh, I can't stand Charlotte. When I saw the dialect of Charlotte, I was like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, that the VO for Charlotte in the English dub of this game is really rough to listen to.
I bet.
She's much better in the Japanese version, but the English dub, not so good. And then of course Hawkeye and Reese are characters that cross over as well. So again, depending on so if you pick 2 of the 3, it will always pick that scenario to kind of follow under. Whereas if you don't pick any of the overlapping characters, like if you pick, let's say if I pick Duran, Kevin, and Hawkeye as my characters, then it would just take the storyline with the bosses of whoever the main protagonist is.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very interesting to hear. So 3 different. Well, I'm trying to think here. So is it 3 different bosses in the beginning? I would say the first half.
There's a bunch of different areas where there are different bosses.
Yeah,
and you go to different you go to locations out of order.
Different orders. I'm in I guess in the back end of the game, and I can tell when I'm facing all these different bosses. I'm like, oh, I've never been to this area before. It's like, oh, that makes sense. That if I chose a different pair, or a different story, I would get those bosses in the beginning, or that area in the beginning.
Yeah, for example, like if you pick Hawkeye, he starts in like the deserty area, which if you play as Duran and Angela, you don't go to that desert area until much later in the game. But like Hawkeye starts there and fights bosses there.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's just like it's a really interesting way to design a game. Where we've played choice games before, but like this choice at the beginning is actually very, very significant. Totally changes the way the game plays out, which is also really adds to the replay value for this game. Because one of the things I loved about both the remake and the original was going back and replaying it with the different combinations of characters and seeing how the story was completely different, or with like what bosses you would fight that were different, or like what areas you would go to like out of order. And yeah, there's even like an exclusive area for each kind of pair as well that you don't go to unless you play as that pair essentially.
So you really got to replay it 3 times in order to really fully get everything.
Like if you're playing on PlayStation, for example, because that's where I played the remake, in order to get the platinum trophy, you have to go and play all 3 storylines.
I see. Okay. Sounds good. I'm playing it on Switch, and on Switch it's totally fine. It's really good. Plays very solidly. I don't care much for action combat with the Joy-Cons. So I do have my Hori Split Pad Pros.
Okay.
I've had these for a while, since like 2019, but they just still work. It's just the controller sticks, It's those red nubs right there. That's much better, much more control on third person action compared to a Joy-Con. It's just it could be rough sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's why I actually I know people don't love the Pro Controller, and there's certain things I don't love about the Pro Controller, but it's hard for me to want to play like 3D action games on the Joy-Cons as well, and I'm just I will use the Pro Controller as much as I don't like it. simply because it's just a better option.
Yeah, so cool. There's a lot of replay value. I think I'm only going to do one playthrough of this game. Yeah, I think that'll be because even going through one playthrough, it'd be at least 25-ish hours, I would assume. So
Yep.
easily a 75-hour experience.
Now, in theory, Garrett, this game has New Game Plus.
Okay.
So you can go through the other playthroughs faster if you choose to.
Okay.
Where it essentially takes the levels your characters are at and then moves them over to whatever characters you select next. That's kind of how New Game Plus works, because they designed that purposely so that you could, in theory, run through the other two playthroughs if you wanted to fairly quickly. Like you can when I got to the third playthrough, Garrett, and my characters were almost max level, I beat that third playthrough in like 5 hours.
That makes more sense. Is it super easy? Like the third
Yeah,
playthrough?
I mean, you can turn it out. Like I turned it up to the hardest difficulty, and there was actually some challenge, because they actually adjust the difficulty based on your levels if you go to the higher difficulties. So it actually, you can have like it be difficult if you want it to be during those alternate playthroughs, or you can just leave it on easy if you wanted, or not easy, sorry, normal mode, which becomes very easy and trivial when you are kind of at the max level.
Got it. Cool. So yeah, I guess, people are aware it's an action RPG. It's linear story. There's a very, once you choose your protagonist, there's a set storyline.
Yeah.
Going through the bosses. Initially, it's like you go from main objective to main objective. I'm at the point where I have to face all these different bosses, but you can do it in any order you want. But it's really chapter to chapter, so it's pretty linear, I would say, still.
Yeah. Not only that, but there's like an optimal order to do those in as well.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm just kind of picking and choosing.
No, that's what you should do on your first playthrough, for sure. I actually encourage that rather than looking it up in a guide.
Well, it's yeah. So I can get into a little bit more of the action combat itself. You go into, they're just all dungeons and open areas or whatever. You go into combat, and it's just like a group of monsters. And it cuts off. It's like a boundary. It's like it's like a circle boundary, and then you go through and just like whack them with basic attacks, strong attacks, or whatever. Of course, you have skills and special abilities and so on and so forth. And then once you're done, you get experience and go on to the next one.
Yeah, and there's like a charge meter as well, where you get to unleash like a special ability with each of the characters that's character dependent, like as you attack during combat, which is actually something that was in the original game, but also one of the mechanics that's in the original game that's missing here that they actually removed, Garrett, was in the old mana games. There's also a separate bar that charges up, and you can't attack while that bar is charging up, and or if you do, your attacks do half damage. So you kind of have to like attack, wait for the bar to reload, attack, wait for the bar to reload, and then hack again. Because they don't want you to just spam the attack button, essentially. Whereas in this, it plays more of like your standard like 3D third person, action RPG.
Yeah, definitely third person action RPG. So that's just for like regular monsters. The bosses are, I think, probably the most unique part of this game in terms of gameplay compared to, I would say, other 3D action games, where there's a lot of obstacles to go through, so many different forms of bosses. They could be giant birds. They could be, I think one was like an oven or whatever. There's just so many different bosses, and they do areas of attack, and then there's certain weak points of the monsters that you really have to time your strong attacks to hit their weak points in order to get through. I've been in many situations where I died multiple times to a boss, and it's really just because I just didn't strategize enough with my timing of attacks and so on and so forth. There's definitely in certain spots where it could really easily change the tide of your health meters with all of your characters. So you just got to be very careful, and it depends on which character you control.
Yep.
as you get into a boss. So you can freely change to each character throughout the game. So you just press one of the triggers and you go exactly to that character, and then you get to play them. Very similar to the Tales games.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have full control over the 3 party members that you have access to, which is awesome. And that was something that was in the original game too, Garrett. But I don't know if you knew this. And there was no advertising for this. But did you know that the original game was actually a co-op game?
I did not know that.
Because they didn't advertise it as such. But simply, if you had 3 controllers connected via multi-tap to your Super Nintendo, you could have 3 people control the 3 characters all at the same time and all play together. Cool. Yeah, because that's the whole reason why, like, the ring menu, because you've probably seen, of course, the ring menu. That's why it's kind of set up the way it is, so that people can access it like 3 ring menus at once, essentially. Because like both Secret of Mana and Trials of Mana are actually are meant to be co-op games. But they just didn't add the co-op element to this version, which is too bad. Like, I would have actually loved to play like this game co-op.
I think that's actually one of the faults of this game, is that when I get into a boss, the AI is a little bit too dumb.
Yeah. And that was a big problem in the original game too, where in a lot of, like, you were so much more efficient if you were playing with other people, because the AI was kind of dumb in the original game too.
They really just get in the way. They get into the areas of attack, and they just don't know what to do with the bosses, and it's slightly frustrating because you want to pick them back up because they do damage. So you cost your items in order to make sure that they're up, but at the same time, man, when they come up, sometimes they just immediately fall back down just because the boss is doing a super attack in their area. So I think, yeah, and there is some control over the AI. Like, you can say, oh, you could be super aggressive, super defensive, but I find that even, it's just, for example, I don't know if I can change this, Ryan, but with Duran, you can't power the swords really with the AI. Like, you can't do special really abilities as much. They do it sometimes.
Yeah, like they won't do it freely. Like, you have to manage that yourself in a lot of ways, which kind of sucks. Which is why, like, it that goes a little bit into picking the classes a little bit and the strategy that comes along with that, because, like, Duran, as example, if you're not playing as him, his sword elemental attacks are not going to be used as often, which if you go down one path, because he basically has 2 class paths that you start on, one of them is mostly focused on those, and the other one is focused on either defensive skills or like healing abilities and stuff like that. Like, that's usually the better path, mathematically, to go down if you're not going to be controlling him, because the AI won't use those other abilities.
Yeah, so I find that kind of interesting, but I think I got to the point where I build up my classes, build up my characters, where I'm getting into a groove of, like, smashing down the bosses. So anyways, I think that's a good segue. Can we get into the classes here?
Yes, of course. So this was the first time they kind of did this in the Mana series, because originally in the older Mana games, the way you would progress your characters, it was that you would actually level up the weapons themselves. And you would get, like, these, like, special weapons throughout the game. But you would only get one of each weapon type, essentially. Like, you'd get, like, a spear and a boomerang and a bow and arrow and a sword and an axe. And then you would level up the weapons themselves, and then those would give you new abilities. But in this game, they decided to switch it over to a class system where each character, at a certain point in the game, will be given one of 2 choices of classes. A light side path and then a dark side path, that then will kind of branch off. And then as you get further into the game, you'll have a choice of another 2. And those 2 will depend on if you're on the light side path or the dark side path. And then later on in the game after that, you will then get another choice. So you get a total of 3 full class changes for each character in this game. And they are wildly different from each other. Wildly different.
Yeah, so 3 class changes. So I know you get one at level 18.
Yep.
And one at level 38.
Yeah.
If you have the item.
Yep. And then there's one after that as well.
There's one after that. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm at the point with my game where I have, I'm trying to remember. Reese and Duran are in the 3rd class, so they've been to 2 class changes.
Right.
And then I have Angela still only 1 class change, only because I didn't have the item yet. But I just got the item to do that, so I'll do that really quickly. And then did you mention that there's a light and dark path for each class?
So essentially, like the light path usually focuses more on either protection magic or support skills and things like that. It depends on the character; they're very widely different. And the darker path focuses more on damage dealing.
Mm-hmm. So for me, Duran, I chose the dark path.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely tell that you did because you told me about the elemental, his sword elemental skills.
Yes.
Because those are all on the dark path for Duran.
Mm-hmm. So I got all the elementals for that. And then Reese, I did the dark path as well.
Yeah.
And so it has all the debuffs, can lower the attack and defense of monsters.
Because that's her whole deal is like she's like a buff on the light side. She's a buffer for the party. And then on the dark side, she's a debuffer for the enemies. So she's she's almost like a support character in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. And then Angela did a light path for her.
Okay. Yeah, Angela, it's just like, her skill, like it's more just the type of spells that you get.
It seems like it's just all magic in general.
That is kind of how that works with her in particular. Like she doesn't, she's not really, buffing the party or providing protection or anything like that. It's just different flavors of her spells.
Mm-hmm.
But
cool. I have a question for you. So you have 1 class change, and you could choose light or dark for level 18. Level 38, do you have an option to do light or dark?
No,
again?
it's just like 2 choices based on whatever path you're currently on.
I see. So dark, you just go dark. Light, you just go light.
Either really dark or light dark is kind of the way I look at it.
Oh, so there's 4 potentially different classes for 1 character.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I got it. So you need the item though, in order to do the other, to do whatever path you want to do for that 2nd class change.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool.
Yeah. And then, like I said, and again, there's like if you actually read guides, like they'll talk about like the optimal character designs, but it's like, it's more fun just to have fun with it like your first time and really just like be like, oh, which one appeals to you most? Kind of thing. Because like with Duran, like I kind of wanted him down the light path because it is more like kind of like protection spells, or he can become a paladin, so he actually is like a healer for the party since
that's cool.
With the party that we selected, Garret, since we didn't choose Charlotte, it meant that we didn't have a healer in the party. So I
have 0 healing.
Yeah, so Duran becomes that party member if you travel down the light side. Whereas I was like, Angela needs to go fully dark because I want to see like the crazy destructive spells that she gets. Because you get like some of the more powerful spells in the game you actually get on the dark path, but they require like a lot of her mana, so it's like more about management at that point, which becomes very annoying.
Yeah, I do like Angela's spell combat. I'm utilizing her a lot more because a lot of her spells are overpowered.
Yes,
especially if you know the weakness of the monster and the bosses. I'm on a quick menu on my spells, and I'm pretty maxed out on all the elements, so I can be pretty versatile with the combat with Angela. For sure.
Yeah, you're at the point in the game where you should have like all the elements unlocked anyways, and it's just her learning the skills kind of over time kind of thing.
Yeah, and then also I think another big thing with classes is the skills you get and the leveling up. So each level you get a certain amount of training points, and these training points are allocated to each of the stats that you want to build up: strength, intellectual, spiritual, whatever. And then at a certain level of these stats, you unlock skills.
Yeah.
They could be attack skills, but they can also be passive skills as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and not only that too, but like there are certain abilities that you unlock that you can then transfer between characters as well.
yes.
So, yeah. Which is interesting. But yeah, like I like the freedom it gives you, although you can actually paint yourself into the corner if you level up the wrong type of stat for certain characters. So you do have to be a little bit mindful of that, because that is like very much pulled over from the Super Famicom version, and they didn't really tweak it too much. So you just kind of have to be a little bit careful, because there is a little bit of that old school game.
Does it depend on class too? Like if you choose I could tell. So if you choose a certain class, you can tell that the skills really open up in one certain stat and not so much another one. That gave me a clear signal of like, okay, I got to invest in this certain stat in order to get these certain skills, so on and so forth.
Yeah, because likewise, different classes have different preferred stats that have all their skills on it. So you kind of have to figure out like what the preferred stat is for your class that you picked.
I think that's probably the most interesting parts of the game is the leveling up, is the class system and the skills you get, and how to make up the party in general with the combat.
Exactly. Like there's a lot of like, figuring a lot of the stuff out too. And not only that too, but like you're only experiencing one half of this, because the other characters, Kevin, Charlotte, and Hawkeye, their classes are also like super different from the classes you have here. So they play like so differently. Like Kevin, for example, is like a werewolf, and like one side of his class design is like going down like the like these really, really powerful like melee attacks, and the other side is like more of this magic side, which is interesting. Whereas like Charlotte, she's a healer, she's a cleric, but she has like, she's more like Reese in a lot of way, where she has a lot of support magic and stuff, where she has this like these like curses and stuff as you go down the dark path. So again, like really, really interesting and unique character design and class design for each of the individual characters, which is cool.
Yeah, for sure. So, enjoying it so far. We could talk a little bit about the story, not in terms of just like beat to beat, but just like it is a chapter based game, right? I'm in chapter 5 right now, and as you said, it depends on the characters you choose in the beginning. There is kind of like an overarching story with the mana tree itself, where at the beginning, like the fairies are leaving the mana tree because the mana tree is dying, and you meet up with a fairy, and that's how you get tasked to go to the mana tree in the first place. And that's kind of like the overarching plot is the mana tree stuff, but then everything else is what's based around the characters that you select. And then you have to get all the elementals. And then stuff happens, and then you have to beat all the bosses.
That's basically it.
And I just find the story it's just pretty service level.
It's a very cookie cutter story. It was cool that they tried three different completely different storylines, but like none of them are actually like very like super compelling or anything like that. Like that, you're mostly not like, this game is like the story is okay. It's not great. But it's very reminiscent of games of this era, because there were a lot of RPGs like that were like that just didn't really have incredible stories of this era, but were still fun to play. It's not like not all Super Nintendo role playing games are Final Fantasy VI that have that has an incredible story. It's just a lot of them are more like this, where they're more like serviceable stories.
Yeah, I think it serves a purpose to go through the game and figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
But if someone's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna go into this mono game and it's gonna be this, the character arc is going to be amazing, the story is going to be impactful. It's like, no. You're here for the action combat, the party makeup, and then maybe there's some diverse storylines or whatever. But
there are some good moments for sure. But it's definitely, you're right, like it's not that great. But also you have to keep in mind as well, at the time, like this was kind of like Square Enix's answer to The Legend of Zelda in a lot of ways, because these games the original ones played a lot like the top-down isometric Zelda games. So they, like, the Zelda games were never really, the story was never the focus of those games either. And I think, like, kind of Square kind of took that tactic a little bit with it. But like even coming into Visions of Mana, I'm not even expecting the story to blow me away with a game like that.
No, not so much either. Yeah.
But I know that game's going to be really fun to play. I know it's going to have good music and good visuals and stuff like that. So like, that's more the reason I'm excited about it over the story.
And then the also thing that really bogs me down is the voice acting.
Yeah.
The English voice acting is pretty bad.
It's not great.
Like I went over to the Japanese voice acting, and I obviously wouldn't tell if it's good or bad voice acting in Japanese. But it's a little better, I guess, than compared to...
I mean, at least you didn't have to listen to Shawit in the Japanese version. Yeah.
That was rough. I don't actually turn the sound on too much with this game.
Yeah. It's a really good podcast game in a lot of ways.
It really is. Like, you can listen to a podcast, you can have a show on the background while you play this game. It's kind of more... And then you can get into cutscenes and, like, pause your show or whatever, but...
Yeah.
That's just how it is. You kind of just go through these dungeons. You go through your typical grind, typical combat stuff. I'm curious, Ryan, did you ever grind in this game?
No, I did not grind in this game.
I grind very little. Like it would probably be another 20 or 30 minutes of just, okay, making sure I'm leveled up enough.
I will say, when I'm exploring the dungeons, though, I'm like very thorough about going through them. Like, I don't rush through them or anything like that. And it makes it so I just never had to grind. In the Super Famicom version, there was some grinding, but in this version, I never really had to do that.
And then each dungeon or map has a lot of treasure chests and items. So basically, when you look at the mini map, if there's a dead end, expect a treasure chest, expect an item. So just, as Ryan said, it kind of rewards you, kind of going everywhere in the map, for sure. Now,
fun fact about the map, Garrett, is that, first of all, the map doesn't exist in the Super Nintendo version.
Oh, I'm never going to play that game.
But, even though the map doesn't exist, what's interesting about the map in this game is literally the game's top-down perspective from the Super Nintendo version as the map.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So, and not only that too, but if you actually do side-by-side comparisons to the areas from the Super Nintendo version and compare it to this, they're literally identical. Like, it is literally a one-for-one remake in every conceivable way as far as the places you go, because they're designed as like one-for-one with the original game.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Like, I thought that was a really nice touch as someone who enjoyed the original version. Not only that, too, but if you even want to spruce up the original flavor, you can actually play this with the original soundtrack as well. It gives you that option in the menu where you can play with the full Super Nintendo music. And I actually prefer that over the arranged stuff. But I'm also, like, just a sucker for, like, chiptune Super Nintendo music.
I'll have to check that out. Cool. I think that's pretty much all I have for you with Trials of Mana.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. It's one of those I'm playing as I'm watching a show type of game.
Yeah.
And every now and then I plan to finish it, probably in the next week or two, because I'm in chapter 5. I'm getting there. I'm getting closer to the end, but we'll see how endgame goes. So
nice. Yeah, and there is like a whole endgame section, because they did add like an endgame dungeon after the credits roll. That is not in the original game. Like, that is one of the new additions, is there's this whole like end game dungeon that you can go on that then kind of gives you the quote unquote true ending, if you want the true ending, which is an ending that adds more context that is original to this version of the game. Cause the ending was, very, very abrupt and okay in the original one, in the original release. Whereas in this, they wanted to add a little more to that ending and give the character's ending some more context.
Oh,
so,
cool.
There is that option if you decide to go down that route when you do finish the game. And then, like I said, there's New Game Plus as well for anyone who finishes that. Then if you want to do this Subsequent playthroughs, it will go a lot faster if you play through New Game Plus versus if you play the just the OG versions as well. But yeah, like I really love this game. Yeah, like the story is not amazing, but everything else about it I really, really enjoy. And more than anything, this is like one of the most one-to-one remakes of a Super Nintendo game I've ever seen in my entire life, which I love as well. Like it made me, like when I was playing it, it made me feel like I was playing the Super Famicom version, which you don't get very often with remakes because a lot of times they have the temptation to like really go ham and do something completely different, and then it doesn't feel like the game that it's trying to represent. Whereas this game in particular is a very, very faithful remake, but for good and for bad, from the original version.
I do, and I think I enjoy the simplicity of equipment management in this game. It's very straightforward. It's like you get money, you go to an item shop, you're at the point where you're getting a higher weapon, a higher armor for your specific character. You buy that, you sell the other one, that's it. Which,
very, very cut and dry.
I love it.
Yeah. And now you also probably understand now, Garrett, with talking about that point, why this is one of those RPGs that I actually will usually recommend to new players of action RPGs. Because, even though there is some tactical stuff with the combat, with the battles, for the most part, like I feel like someone who's new to the genre could very easily get into something like this because it is because of that simplicity, because, for the most part, it's very linear. You're going to wherever the star is on your map. Like that's where you're kind of going. That's the direction you're going. It's very hard to get lost in this game. And you just, the combat, is very straightforward. And then of course the, selling and like the equipment is very easy and straightforward as well.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's a pretty straightforward, very, very linear, and you just go into the battles and they're just fun.
Yeah.
You just kind of beat them up. You got your skills. You got leveling up to do.
Yeah. Also, the game's like cel shaded, and it's got like very adorable enemies as well.
Very adorable
too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I also love like the charm of like you kill like certain like moblin enemies, which are these like fox dudes, and when they die they turn into like a very cute set of bones, and then they just disappear, and I love like little touches like that. So
yeah, there's one monster, it's like it looks like a Squirtle or something, but it kind of eats you, and like he has a tongue attack, and like if you get into that area, it eats you and goes inside its body and chews it. Yeah. And it's just like, oh my God, it's so annoying.
Yeah. But again, it's really interesting, especially again, when you consider like most of the bodices and stuff too are very like almost identical to their original counterparts as well. So from the Super Nintendo version. So it's just interesting to think like that game was in a lot of ways, kind of ahead of its time, or you could definitely tell like it was a very late Super Famicom game. Because again, this game came out towards the end of 1995 after the PlayStation came out.
Wow.
So that's actually one of the reasons why it didn't actually get localized for North America, was just because Secret of Mana was actually a big hit here, to the point where then they did Secret of Evermore, which was more of like a North American aimed Mana style game, but not in the traditional Mana series. It's almost like a spin-off. So it would have actually done probably really well on the Super Nintendo, but this is when, they were trying to move people over to the Nintendo 64 at this point. So, because it was about to come out when this game came out in Japan. So by the time it would have been localized, it would have been like late 1996, which is like would have been too late for the Super Nintendo, I think.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So that's Trials of Mana. But Garrett, before we go, we should talk about the Visions of Mana demo, because Visions of Mana, the brand new game in the Mana series, coming out at the end of the month on the 27th. So, but we got a chance to play the demo, Garrett.
Yes.
Because the demo's out now. I played it on PS5. Where did you play it? Xbox. Nice. Which, by the way, this is going to be the first time the Mana game's been on Xbox.
Isn't that insane? That's so crazy to hear, but I'm here for it, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're pushing out on Xbox platforms.
Yeah. So what did you think about the demo, man?
It was good. I think it modernizes the mana game very well to what we know about action RPGs now. It very much reminds me of a Tales game.
Yeah. Yes, you can definitely tell like they borrowed a lot of inspiration from the Tales series because they did switch up the way that you do like your attacks and stuff like that, which is I think is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of the modern Tales games. It reminds me of Genshin Impact and Grand Blue Fantasy. That type of it's the art style. It's very bright, very bubbly, very good animations as well. But in terms of just the pacing inside of combat or whatever, it's very much like the other games. It's quick. You got your skills, very good animation, it's more fast paced than anything. I think. So,
exactly. Like I like they kind of changed the way the charge attack works this time around, where you have a lot less uses of it, but it's like stupidly overpowered in this demo versus what it was like in Trials of Mana. But I love the fact that you put this well as Garrett. Like I love the way that it evolves the formula that we saw in Trials of Mana, and it definitely feels like a Mana game, but with a bunch of improvements to the combat. So I do think the combat is much improved. I will tell you, I just skipped over all the story stuff because I didn't want to know. Because I'm just gonna wait until the game comes out. Because likewise, this is not one of those demos like Trials of Mana where the save just carries over. You just unlock some items for the new game if you decide to pick it up, but you have to kind of start from scratch with the story. So I was just like, I don't want to know anything about the story, so I just skipped through all those elements. So I don't know if that's worse or better. It probably didn't feel amazing, but again, the Mana games have never been known for great stories, and I don't know if this one's going to change my mind on that one anyways.
So, that's how the combat is. We could talk about the elementals. And pretty different than what we're doing with Trials of Mana.
Same with the classes. They totally
classes
changed
too.
it up as well because they are tied to the elementals themselves. So you equip an elemental to a character and then that changes their class essentially. Like all the characters have like a base class, but then like you change to whatever class the elemental has assigned to it, which means, Garrett, that each character class, because we know there's 8 elementals in the game like there always is, there will be 8 different character class or 9 different character classes when you factor in the base class for each character in this game.
Yes, and so you got that, but I think you're not locked to a class, by the way.
Yeah.
You can change the elementals whenever you want. So you can give an elemental to a certain character in between combat, like kind of spaces. So yeah, you can change your loadout however you want. And then once you invest or spend time with a certain elemental tagged with the class, it increases that skill tree or whatever. So it's definitely more of a user-ended open option for you.
Just play how you want. Have it your way, as the Burger King would tell us.
Exactly. That's just sure. Okay, sounds good. I enjoyed it. I just and they gave us the wind element and then like a dark element. I think
it was a light element.
Oh, light element. Yeah, sorry. I can't recall too much. You get very different character designs and outfits.
That was interesting as well because they didn't have them all unlocked when you start the demo.
No, they didn't. Yeah.
But so that you could see what that unlock process was when you get the fancy cutscene and stuff with your character class and stuff. I thought that was all cool.
Yeah. So you have that. One thing I did not care for is actually once you go to the shop, each tagged class with each character has its own weapon.
Yep.
And has its own armor.
Yep.
That is very confusing.
Yep.
So just to let you know, you have 9 different potentially weapons and armor lines in each character.
I will say, and we don't know this because obviously we haven't seen the game in full. I suspect there's a possibility that some of these armor and item sets will cross over between different characters and character classes. So that you reduce the clutter in your inventory. But that's just my suspicion. We do not have, confirmation of this. because we don't know exactly how the game's going to shake out. But in the demo, you're right. Like, none of the weapons crossed over between any of the characters, so you were buying all the items.
You're buying so much.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a choice. It's like, okay, I'm going to have to choose the ones that I'm going to really use moving forward. So I thought that was interesting. And then and we could talk about the traversal of this game as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I love I like the wolf. I like the mount that you get where you can ride around, you know?
Mm-hmm. I like it. I'm not sure if it's a little faster.
Yeah, it's not like too much faster.
It's not too much faster. And then it's a very open zone area that we were in.
Yeah, big open zone. Like there was a lot of stuff to explore on that map.
Yeah, so Trials of Mana, you're in a very fixed, as you said, minimap, and you're going through a trail. This one, it's like you go anywhere you want. Go to that side.
Lots of side quests too.
That was another one that was pretty big. It's just like, okay, this character wants you to defeat these certain monsters or go to this certain area, which, okay, yeah, you can go through that. I think that's more service to training up your party and getting new items than anything else. So, yeah.
Cool. And then also, Garrett, the boss, because you do fight a boss in the demo. And kind of like what we talked about with Trials of Mana, that boss was really interesting and had a bunch of like unique mechanics and stuff. I thought it was pretty cool.
I thought it was cool. I think I felt the HP sponge.
That is the one thing I was about to mention. He had so much health. Oh my God, it took forever. Like all the enemies were easy to defeat before the boss, but like the boss itself had so much health. So I hope that that's not like a pattern that we see in the main game. I think that might just be partially because this is a demo, and I didn't do all the side quests and stuff, which might have leveled me up a bit more, and maybe that would have gone faster. But yeah, like you're right, like the sponginess of this particular boss versus what we had in Trials of Mana, because those bosses are not like super damage sponges. There are some that feel a little bit in that direction, whereas this was way closer to something like Grand Blue Fantasy versus or Relink or like Tales of Arise, where like sponginess of it.
I feel like the bosses in Trials of Mana, there's a lot more at stake. You gotta dodge its attacks. And it actually reminds me of a Souls game in that sense, where you really got to make sure to dodge. You got to get into it. I mean, of course, it's not as difficult as a Dark Souls boss, but it's going to that direction. Whereas this one, yeah, man, it's like it's a little easier to dodge the certain attacks. It was very predictable.
Yeah,
I wish there was a little bit more stuff, like a second wave. I wish. I mean, the tentacles are cool, but you could attack those, but it looked like it didn't do anything.
It did. It basically doubled the damage that you dealt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you don't cut off a tentacle or anything like that.
No. It just it kills the boss faster.
But yeah, the boss was it was a cool set of motions and the animations, but the HP is like a little rough.
Yeah, for sure. Like I love the design, the overall look of the boss, but you're right. Like I definitely I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just me who felt that way, but yeah, it was definitely, it felt way more spongy, which is one of my pet peeves with modern action JRPGs, where they make the bosses just have way too much health, and I've definitely felt that from this, which I didn't love.
Yeah, so very different, I would say, than Trials of Mana game. It looks like it's Trials of Mana / Grand Blue Tales Edition.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm also curious as well, like, because we only got access to 3 characters in the demo, which of course is the same selectable characters in the original game. I wonder if you actually get to select all the characters, because 5 of the 6 characters were in a party already. But like, so I was wondering like if we could control them, but no, they were just off on the sidelines. So I wonder if like either you unlock them later, or you select which party, like maybe you only get to select 3 party members you actually control, and they all go on the journey together. I wonder how that's actually all going to work in the final game.
Yeah, it sounds like the story is one. It's one storyline.
Oh yeah. I'm not expecting that to change, because it looks like all the characters go on the adventure together, unlike Trials of Mana. But I wonder if like maybe you only control 3 of the characters throughout the whole game.
It could be very much so. Or there's certain parts. I don't know. It's interesting to limit that.
Yeah.
Knowing what we have now with Tales games, with Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Yep.
Where you manage 5 or 6 characters. So
yeah, and it's also one of those things too, where again, this is the demo, not the full game, and it could be different in the full game.
Maybe you can just choose your party of 3 characters.
Yeah,
later
maybe.
On. So
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess we'll find out. I'm excited. Again, I'm excited. We're less than a month away, and I'm very, very excited about this one. It's been a long time coming, because I've been waiting for them to do something else with this series, Garrett, since Trials of Mana came out, and I'm glad 5 years later, we're finally getting there with a new game.
I can't believe 2019's 5 years later. It's just
Yeah.
so-
I mean, Garrett, it blew my mind the other day when I learned and was reminded that ARMS is a 7-year-old game.
Oh my goodness.
In 3 years we will have made it to the 10th anniversary of ARMS.
Don't do that to me.
Also, it's been 10 years of Mario Kart Deluxe, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Yeah, that's true. Mario Kart.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
yeah.
So.
And likewise, it legitimately has been 11 years of Grand Theft Auto 5 as well. So
Yeah, came out 2013. Last
Yeah.
of Us as well, 2013. So
yeah, yeah,
10 years.
Crazy,
It's
man.
They're 11 years. Retro games now.
yeah. Good God. Of course, Rabo just chimed in 5 years. That's the gap between Blandino episodes of RPG Cave. Come on, Garrett's not gone that long.
Oh, Ribo. It's
I'm just gonna shake my head at Rabo.
just no.
Yeah.
No.
Anyways, Garrett, we should probably get out of here. But before we go, of course, we got to say thank you to all of our patrons over at patreon.com/Corporal Gaming, starting with our ultimate producers, Jonathan Brown, the man behind the music on the Xbox Drive and the PlayStation Drive. You can find the link tree to all of his music at linktr.ee/pme/JIB. And Cwagmire, who humbly reminds you that the best babes are, in fact, Xenobabes. Links to all of our ultimate producers can always be found in the description of our podcasts and our videos. So please make sure to go and support them as they support us, and they're super awesome. Our platinum producers, Peje, Smokin Joe, The Captain, and Tim Paullin, and our gold members, Adam K, Anna, Awesome Dave 1337, BobLoblaw, Brad Moore, Brian Reese, Cecily Carrozza, CowboyDangerD, Dan and Luma, Drellesh, Emily O'Kelly, Hoppel, Jan32, Kia Savoy, Old Mr. Frump, Patrice Mallette, Shane Erickson, Tech Mike, The Jiggy Collector, and Tim Aulph. Huge thank you once again to all of our patrons over at patreon.com/carpoolgaming. And of course, if you want to hop in the car with us, head on over there and choose the tier that's right for you. And now, Garrett Plugs go.
You can follow me on Twitter at Blind Explosion. I am currently looking at my dog lying down on the bed, full back, just like this, with the paws up and the legs down. The legs are twitching as she's sleeping. It's just the cutest thing ever. Every time I see her.
That's adorable.
But a quick plug, I did the Pants Patreon podcast for Patrons podcast.
You did.
Last night.
I think that the episode will be out tomorrow.
It'll be out tomorrow. It's scheduled. It's plugged in. Thank you all for the wonderful questions. I went an hour just talking. So hopefully you like my rambling.
You didn't want to do the 3 hours like Fulia did?
Fulia did 3 hours?
Fulia did a 3-hour episode, yeah.
Even after an hour, my voice was shot. How can you do 3?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where it actually is quite natural because she does her own solo podcast, so it actually makes a lot of sense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Kind of makes sense.
So, yeah, she's just used to that. Whereas you and I are just like, oh, my God, it's in an hour. Just get me out of this, please.
Well, my voice is like, I cannot go, like, if I'm constantly talking, it cannot be longer than an hour. Because it just really messes up my voice.
Yep.
Man, but she only had 5 questions too, right? Like,
yeah, well, she had a lot to say, man.
Good for her, man. I would have to listen to that, see how that.
It's a good episode. You should go listen to it. But yeah, I'm actually excited to check out your episode tomorrow because I think it's going to be pretty awesome. So make sure, of course, fans of Garrett, please go over to Patreon You can sign up, even if you want to sign up for the 7-day free trial, just to listen to it, because there is a free trial for the exclusive tier. That'll be there. So you can make sure you go and listen to that as well. And yeah, I'm with you, Garret. Like my episodes are like 45 minutes long usually, even with multiple questions.
You know, I thought 55 minutes was like, oh, I did a good job. It's not 20 minutes of like 5 words or something to it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing about the Pants Patreon podcast for Patrons podcast. You gotta make what you want of it, and it's always like it's different between every host, which is nice. Like I love kind of the different flavor each of us spin on it, but yeah.
Cool.
As for me, or sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Oh,
go ahead.
As for me, you can find me on the old Twitter, aka X, at Ryan Turford. You also find us on X at Carpool Gaming. You also find us right here, youtube.com/Carpool Gaming. And of course on Twitch, twitch.tv/Carpool Gaming Live. And of course, podcast services around the globe. So for Garret Bland, I'm Ryan Turford. This has been the 148th level of the RPG Cave. Only 2 more levels, Garret, until level 150.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe it either. It's kind of stuck up on us. And we're out. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.